Good. What's going on, everybody, and welcome to an Angle of Pursuit podcast special live stream here Sunday morning, getting you set for the Cookout 400 over on DraftKings, looking at our betting card as it sits, adding bets along the way. I'm going to create a banner. Please drop your questions as we roll along. But Brian Twining, how's everything going this Sunday morning?
It's going great, man. I'm excited for this race here. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting happenings. There's a lot of cars I think have a good shot of winning here. That is, of course, if they can prevent Martin Truex Jr. from getting out front.
Yeah.
But I think we have a good shot here to get one of the better races of the season at a track that has notoriously kind of produced, runaway races. Not anything like we saw at a hashtag race to turn one this morning with Max Verstappen winning by over 25 seconds. But like, yeah, I'm just excited for the race. You got tons of storylines. Denny versus Larson. Like, are these two going to connect today? You got Chase Elliott still fighting for that first victory. He looked pretty good practicing qualifying. So let's get into this, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. We'll obviously go through the DraftKings player pool, get some thoughts out there, get our betting card up to date, let everybody know where we're sitting, where we're at now, and where there's value post practice, post qualifying. A lot of interesting stuff to take away. Obviously, we had Group A and Group B. The track conditions were faster for Group A, but then, as you mentioned when we were chatting before we went live, the qualifying kind of flipped that on its head and made things interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of take away everything. If you are joining us live, appreciate you taking some time out of your morning to join us. If you have questions as we roll along, please drop them in the chat and we'll try to answer them as we roll along. But Brian, let's do as we always do. Let's run through the DraftKings pricing, see if we can't find some value for the people and keep this thing rolling. Martin Truex, the only 11K driver on the board, flat 11, starting 10th. We'll go Kyle Larson, 10-8. Denny Hamlin starting third, 10-5. We'll see if he makes some friends or some enemies on the track today. Kyle Busch starting second at 10-4. And Christopher Bell at 10-2, starting 29th. Feels like a nice opportunity there. And then Kevin Harvick at 10-1 rounds out the 10K range. I guess from 10 from Harvick on up, what are your thoughts? Who's standing out? Where's their potential value as we sit here Sunday morning?
I think it's clear that Martin Truex Jr. is going to have one of the best, if not the best, car here. I mean, he didn't do anything in practice that would have not made you think, oh man, this guy should be the favorite. And then, yeah, his qualifying lap, it wasn't the greatest, but I mean, we've talked about this at these types of tracks, especially short tracks where they're running a ton of laps. Single lap speed means almost nothing, unless, of course, we get, the overtime restarts, which in that breath, like obviously there's one guy in particular that I think you and I would both agree is probably the best for that. But in this group, Truex to me is probably the favorite. And then of course, Christopher Bell, but his roster percentage is going to be massive starting that far back in the field.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how many people get to Bell. I think he'll be an easy click, but he also is priced up, so people might be more inclined to go with a Truex or Kyle Larson, who's a few spots back, only $200 cheaper, and obviously has a similar upside. Could get to the front pretty quickly, find a way to stay in front most of the day, and kind of do what Truex did last week, where he's just kind of there and dominating, and he's the guy you absolutely need in your lineup. So Truex and Larson, I think, is going to be an interesting pivot, decision making. What about Kyle Busch? Do you think he is somebody that gets a little overlooked here, starting second? People, we can go to Bell, who's a little bit cheaper, starting way farther back. Hamlin, Larson, Truex, I think, are all going to get clicks over him. Is there any potential there, or is that something we should probably just not stress on because the odds of him kind of getting to the front and running there all day is much lower than the people around him?
Yeah, I definitely think there is some value there with Kyle Busch. Personally, he's not somebody I've really been extremely high on this year. I've kind of bobbed as everybody else has weaved on Kyle Busch from a week to week standpoint, and
Yeah.
it like he's been good here. He hasn't been great lately. He's only has one finish, better than eighth over the last 6 races here, and that was a sixth back in or back in late 2020. He's been fine. It's just hard to know what this team is going to bring on a week to week basis. And, for a guy that's notorious for speeding on pit road or for, making mistakes by leaving equipment from pit road, it's just hard for me to get to him starting second like that, especially from a DFS standpoint.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a good point. We do have somebody in the chat pointing out Bell was 18-1 last night to win the race. Now he's plus 850 for a guy that's starting that low or starting 29th, could get to the front pretty easily and make some noise. I think that is a very interesting play there. I wonder if we can get two 10K guys in our lineup and feel good about it. Matt Jones pointing out it's a Chase Elliott day. We'll see. He looked good in practice. He looked good in qualifying. We'll obviously flip over and look at the betting odds once we run through DraftKings and kind of figure that out. Brian, let's jump into the 9K range because I think there's a lot of interesting points, a lot of interesting plays. Our guy William Byron starting sixth at 9,900, easily a guy who could get to the front and be there. And then obviously in terms of single lap speed has been one of the best almost all season, has found a way to convert a lot of being right there at the end into wins, something his Hendrick teammate Kyle Larson has not been able to do. Joey Logano starting 23rd at 97 could be interesting. I know he's one of your rivals, but starting 23rd, 9,700 could be a nice opportunity for him to move forward, make some noise. The aforementioned Chase Elliott starting fourth, 9,500. Hendricks right up there. They're ready to make some noise this week for sure. Ross Chastain starting 19th, 9,200, and your boy Ryan Blaney starting 25th at 9K even. Lot to process here. A lot of interesting options. Obviously, you can go with some guys starting near the front. You can go with some guys moving their way up from the back. Who jumps out to you as a potential value?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I love William Byron. We came into the week; he was my favorite outright from a value perspective. Just like Martin Truex Jr. per practice, like he looked great, and then qualifying too. Like he didn't put together the greatest qualifying lap, and he's still starting inside the first 3 rows here, which is kind of what I anticipated. So I like him a lot. Obviously, I'll never get on the Joey Logano bandwagon. I liked Ryan Blaney early in the week, and I do think there's a decent shot that he and Logano can work their way inside the top 10. I'm just a little skeptical based on what we've seen Penske do a lot of times this year, where they either look good in practice and qualifying and then they suck during the race, or they just kind of mediocre, and that's just what they are for the weekend.
Yeah.
So I kind of worry about that.
I trust Logano to kind of find a way to get his car where it needs to be at the end. And I know he's not the most fun to root for, but starting 23rd, especially if you want to do like could you get 3 of the 9K range guys, if you like Elliott or you like Byron as a potential front runner early, and then maybe you go the Penske guys or even Chastain, who I mean, this guy is like, every time I try and get excited about him, he's just not there. And then when I'm kind of like, okay, he stinks. He's just too slow. He freaking wins Nashville. So I don't know what to make of him, but there is like some decision making. I'm with you on Byron. I think he makes sense. Obviously, Elliott, if you like him. And then you could go with some of these guys like a Bell starting 29th and then come down here for your first dominator. So it's an interesting week. I think it's a good week to make a few lineups and see what you can cobble together. But I'm going to push you into Logano, I think, this week, because I just think he makes too much sense.
If it helps us win money, I'm all for that. I've talked about that all the time about sports and being a sports fan. At the end of the day, it's about benefiting me.
Yep. And we'll have to look top 5, top 10 stuff on some of these guys like Logano, like Chastain, like Blaney. Like, what are the books saying about their ability to move forward, to make some noise? Are they still
Exactly.
being priced accordingly in the outright market? Good ways to kind of use what you're expecting to happen, plus what the books are expecting, to build some quality lineups and find some value. Let's jump into the 8K range, where we have the pole sitter Tyler Reddick starting first, 8,900. Brad K starting 13th at 83, or no, 86. Ty Gibbs starting 7th at 83. Alex Bowman at 81 rounds out the 8K. There's only 4 guys in that range. Um, this is an interesting range. I wouldn't blame anybody who just kind of crosses it off and jumps down to the 7K. But if you had to attack someone in the 8K range, who do you think provides the most potential, is the most compelling to you?
Again, we've talked about this so many times over the last few weeks, but 23XI, they are providing their drivers with absolute rocket ships. And it's really comes down to whether or not both of them, both Reddick and Bubba, can keep the damn car on track. And I mean, if you want to get really crazy with your lineup, you skip both of those front 2 lineups, or both of those front 2 ranges in terms of trying to find your dominator, and you just put Reddick there, and you just hope
Yeah.
that he's able to keep the foot in it, avoid hitting the damn wall like he did during qualifying and practice. Like, why
Yeah.
are they pushing so damn hard
To
right
get on the
there? Like,
pole, Brian. We've
I
seen it
know,
with
but
Reddick.
good
Like,
lord.
he's a guy we love, and obviously has incredible amounts of talent, but he has that Ryan Blaney stage 3, whatever you want to call it, where he finds a way to get into something that he doesn't need to be getting
Exactly.
into, and then kind of tanks what should have been a really, really strong day. So I'm with you. I think it's definitely interesting, especially if you want to pivot, in GPPs. But it is, you're playing a little bit with fire, so make your decisions accordingly. Obviously you want to build in some risk if you're going for tournaments, but
Yeah.
maybe don't take all of the wild cards.
I mean, you
Uh,
could just get really crazy and take everybody that's kind of like that. I mean, I think in the same breath is going to be Brad Keselowski. He looked like shit
yeah,
during practice, and then he runs pretty damn well during qualifying. He's a veteran. He's raced here a ton of times. He's a good driver behind the wheel. Like, again, I don't think his roster percentage is going to be very high. And if you're playing in tournaments that are, the 150 max entries, you got to be different from people. And if you think he's got a shot at a top 5, say, like, I think he's a great play to add with a Reddick to get a little crazy.
yeah. I think the RFK guys, obviously we'll talk Busher here in a minute, but RFK guys make a lot of sense as potential values. I still like Alex Bowman. Has had a lot of history at this track. Um, Jody pointing out a good thing, that Reddick has never led a lap on a short flat track. This
But,
could be the day that he turns that, or we're talking about William Byron in New Hampshire, where as much as we like what he could do and how well he's performed all year, he still finds a way to finish outside the top 10. So,
yeah, and
um,
I think, like, obviously that's a great stat to look at, but something I've kind of convinced myself of, and I keep talking about this, like 2023 in the next gen car and is just so much different than what we've seen in the past. I
yeah,
mean, even the last couple of days with Bob Pockris interviewing all the drivers about the Denny incident, all the drivers are literally saying the reason why that he's able to do that is because of the car itself.
no,
And, like, we haven't seen racing like that. So I definitely think, it obviously you got to take past history at a track like this into account, but we haven't seen these guys race like this before, or these tracks race like this for that matter.
yeah, for sure. Appreciate everybody who's jumping in. Everybody's leaving comments. Brian and I do this twice a week, mostly betting on Wednesdays. When we record, it'll be in your feed on
Yeah.
Thursday. And then we usually record Saturday night. But if enough people are interested, we could just do these Sunday morning live streams and make it a thing. Brian
Then
Twining, go ahead.
real quick, Jody, another question. What about in cash? I'd be scared of Reddick in cash, to be quite
Yeah,
honest with you.
yeah. In cash, I'm probably Truex makes me feel better. Larson makes me
Oh
feel
yeah,
better. Even like like Byron, I feel much better about in cash.
for sure.
But in tournaments, like if I want to bet on Reddick, just jumping out to the front, staying there most of the day, and finding the way to dominate to lead laps, that could be a fun way to be a little unique.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the 7K range where we have some compelling options. Daniel Suarez starting 33rd, who was actually pretty decent in practice. Not incredible, but solid for sure. Um, your guy Chris Buescher starting 26, who was good and had just bad in qualifying. I'm not really sure what happened, but yeah, I mean he was second in 10 laps, second in 15 lap. Looked really good all the time in practice, and then just something happened in qualifying. So I guess he could be a play. Your guy Bubba starting fifth, should have cashed that. Should have made that ticket. There's still plenty of time for Bubba to ruin your top 10, but man, that would have been a nice number.
Yep.
Almirola starting 24th, and Chase Briscoe, my guy, starting 20th, 7,100. Some interesting back markers here. Some guys that can move for the field. Who's jumping out to you?
I mean, Chris Buescher, I'm going to stick to it. I'm definitely taking a little more credence into what he showed in practice, which was pretty good long run speed, decent amount of, or I guess you would say a lack of fall off
Yeah.
over the longer runs at this track. Like he has Kozlowski in his garage, who's has a decent amount of success here. Starting 26th, I think he makes a ton of sense from a DFS standpoint, and also too, like you can actually go back to the well and get decent numbers for him in the placement market.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We got some people pointing out Doc123 is with me on Chase Briscoe, and Almirola too. I like them.
Gross.
I like them better from a DraftKings perspective. I don't know that, like, I like Briscoe. I think he's like maybe a good top 10 bet, especially as he points out, SHR's long run speed is good. Briscoe's been pretty good on the shorter, flatter tracks. I don't know that I think he has the elite speed to make a run if for some reason this goes to overtime or we're looking at a late caution with 5 or 10 to go. Like, I don't think he has the ability to outrun Martin Truex or Tyler Reddick or Chris Bell or
Yeah.
whoever you want to throw up there. But I think he could be interesting, maybe a top 5 bet, but probably more of a top 10. And I think Briscoe starting 20th, moving up 10 spaces, and Almirola starting 24th, trying to flirt with the top 10 as well, I think could both make sense at their prices. I'm with you on Buescher. I don't know about Suarez. Suarez obviously starting farther back. I just like
I don't even know what to think of Trackhouse right now.
that's what
Let's
I'm
be honest
saying.
here.
Like, I don't know how to process that. And I don't know that I trust them to do what they need to do this week to be reliable. So he's probably a cross off, even as interesting as he could potentially be. Let's go 6K, where we have Ryan Preece starting 11th. We have Austin Dillon starting 17th. We have Ricky Stenhouse starting 9th. Eric Jones starting 27th. The Dinger. What do we make of the Dinger? And then obviously Justin Haley. But what do we make of the Dinger? Obviously, didn't run practice and qualifying. Was doing the Xfinity race on Saturday. Obviously, didn't win and was kind of like a top 10 car. Do we think, like, do we trust him to come in and be interesting here, or is this like a landmine that we shouldn't even look at?
Yeah, he's probably a complete fade
Yeah,
for me. The dude only has 4 career top 10s, I believe, here, 3 or 4 at Richmond. I mean, the last 3 times he's run here, the last he hasn't finished better than 20th over like the last
yeah,
7 or 8 runs here at Richmond. And you know, obviously practice and qualifying doesn't mean much there, but Colleague has been up and down this year. You know where they're strong, you know where they're not, and it's almost as if they punted this practice and qualifying, just kind of knowing this was going to be a mediocre weekend for them. So I
no,
don't really have much excitement about what we're going to see out of him. And then also, he's probably going to be like 40%, maybe 45% roster, just starting at the back
yeah.
based on name value.
let us know in the comments. Are you using AJ Allmendinger this week? Is he somebody, he's priced, 6K, starting 36th, obviously has a lot of room to move forward. He's been a much better driver this year, he's only 17 points short of the cut line. But this feels like a dangerous situation. I don't know that I want to, there's enough opportunity to find value and find different names to target that it doesn't seem like a risk worth taking. Like I'd much rather go up to Eric Jones at 6,300 starting 27, see if he can work his way forward. Obviously not a speed track, but I still think he's interesting enough. Are Priest and Dylan and probably Stenhouse just flat cross offs for you, Brian, or do you have any interest in any of those guys?
Well, I mean, it's interesting to note Stenhouse has been on a little bit of a heater uh, recently, and then Eric Jones too. Like Jones has been running really well, but this isn't necessarily a track that he excels at, nor the track type for that matter. So,
Yeah.
I'm not excited. I would much rather go to Jones starting that much further back in the field. You got a little bit more room for mistakes to
Mhm.
happen where he can, mess up and still finish, say, 20th or 19th, and you still gain points there. Whereas Stenhouse, he's got a long way to drop. So probably an avoid.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel strongly about it, one of those guys and you hit them, their roster percentage is going to be very very low. So if you think Dylan could be somebody that flirts with the top 10 or maybe even better, you might be able to find some interesting value. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems like a bridge too far. But we'll have to figure out something down here because if we want to play all the guys at the top, we have to find a way to save some money down. Let's dive into the 5K, and as we finish off, we'll just go all the way to the bottom. So we got Michael McDowell 5,900, easy click for both of us. Starting 18th, Austin Cindric. I don't know what to make of this guy. Like he was somebody I was kind of excited about when he made the jump to Cup Car, but it's been a rough go for him for sure. Obviously, on road courses, he's interesting. Super
Yeah.
speedways, he's interesting. Outside of that, it's hard to get to him. Harrison Burton starting 22nd. Corey LaJoy is 31st. Todd Gilliland 16. Noah Gragson starting 12th, which is good for you, Noah. Ty Dillon, JJ Yaley, and BJ McLeod round out the group as per usual. Is there anybody below 6K that is somewhat interesting to you?
Honestly, not really. Like I feel like this week is going to be a lot of sevens and eights. I think hold the best value.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to
I
I'm
just
trying
think so the back marker cars this week, there I mean, it's gonna happen fairly quickly, but they're gonna be multiple laps down by the end of this
yeah.
thing.
That
And then
that's a legitimate concern.
yeah, and then having the race in traffic like that, I think there's a legit chance that those back markers say create chaos even further and they wreck or their races just get ruined even more because their cars are that crappy.
Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't LaJoy pretty decent in practice?
No way, dude.
I'm just trying to convince myself, man. There's
I
gotta be
like Corey LaJoy at like speedways, but
yeah.
anything that involves, throttle
Strategy. Yeah.
manipulation
He was
and
in the faster group on practice. That makes more sense, but
yeah,
I'm just looking at iFantasy races average speed cheat, and it's like Suarez and Eric Jones and Corey LaJoy and Ricky Stenhouse, and it's just like, who are these names? Why are they? I don't know. So,
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, Brian, let's build a lineup.
All right, let's do it.
I told you I was gonna force you into it. We're putting Joey Logano in here off the jump.
Gross.
Yeah, I know it's real gross, but I'm pushing you. So what? Who do you want in next? We have to make some decisions. Do we want to go? You know, we could even do a Larson or a Truex as a second dominator.
Let's
Uh,
put Oh shit,
We
that's
can
right.
get
We
to
are gonna need
Bell.
a
We can go
dominator here.
down. Byron, we both like.
Let's do Byron.
Okay.
I just think he's an easy ad for both of us.
Okay. I really want some Christopher Bell.
Do it. Let's see what we can
Let's see
make
if we
happen
can
here.
do it. Let's see if we can force ourselves into an uncomfortable position. So we're gonna have to start saving money if we want to make this lineup work. How do we do that?
I mean, you can begin. Ah, man, these options down there suck. That's
Yeah,
just kind of.
it's really gross. It's really gross.
Yeah, this is gonna be a rough
So
week.
McDowell, I don't hate. Is there
The only thing I worry about McDowell is his starting position because he's starting, middle of the pack. I don't know if his upside outweighs the potential downside of what could occur.
Okay, let's pull that back and let's see what we can do from here. See if we're a little more comfy with some of these other names. So I like Briscoe and Almirola in the 7K range. We could potentially use both of them. Do you have
Honestly, this is gonna sound gross, but I prefer Briscoe to
Okay.
Almirola.
I mean, sounds good to me. I'm on board with that one for sure.
Yeah,
What about your boy Busher? 77, starting
do it.
26th. Okay, so now we're at 7,800. The question is, do we want to force ourselves into a name that we may not love, but allows us to get a much better option into our lineup, or do we want to try
Who's
and get
starting second to last? That's what I gotta know.
what's
You
that?
got you got JJ Yaley or Ty Dillon.
Let's see.
4,800, 4,900.
Let's see.
Can they move up 2 spots?
I would go Ty Dillon. That's who I would go.
Yeah, let's do it because if he can just give us a couple of positions,
And that allows us to do basically whatever we want.
and then you can
So,
put Bell in there
so we
because
could put Bell
I am
in
a little
there.
scared that we don't have a single Toyota considering JGR has been really good
Yeah, has
lately.
been dominant. But do we want to consider a Hamlin, a Busch, or Chase Elliott as potential like early dominators, or do we think Byron can get there fast enough?
I mean, I don't mind Hamlin, but how many people are going to be gunning for him this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but I think Hamlin's interesting, and I don't like Denny Hamlin, but I think that's the move. And that still lets us get a Toyota in our lineup.
Yeah, and Jody in the comment section, he makes a good point. He or she makes a good point. Michael McDowell was pretty good during the spring here, but when you ask me, I'm not. Obviously, it's the same track, it's the same season, blah blah blah. But I mean, the weather conditions were vastly different. The cars have transitioned into. We've seen multiple teams make changes that they've now established speed, while others have lost speed since that time. So, I don't want to take too much from that spring race outside of that guy actually looked good there, but from a
Yeah. And he was pretty bad in practice. He was only in front of Gillen, Dillon, Gregson, Dinger, obviously, and then BJ McLeod. So I think, yeah, he's probably somebody that I'd rather avoid at this point, but we'll
yeah.
see. All right, Brian, that feels good. Let's save that lineup and hop on over to the betting card and give the people a look at what we have as we sit here now, and then find some value. This betting card just like
Good job, Kyle.
boggles my mind. Like, I don't even remember making. So I have Ross Chastain and Ryan Blaney at 16 and 22. I have Bowman to top 10. I have Briscoe to top 10. I have Larson over Truex. I have Ross Chastain over Chase Elliott. I had Byron and Bowman for the poll. Neither of them were really in contention. But
Byron
fine.
looked great during practice. I thought for sure after he threw down those laps in practice
Yeah.
of fast laps that he was going to have a shot, but
Yeah, for sure. Byron over Harvick. Truex top 3 and Byron top 5. I'm curious at these numbers because I added both of those expecting the lines to move. So we'll see if I got value or if I um figure that out. And then you have Byron and Blaney. You have Byron top 5, Blaney top 5, Larson over Truex, Blaney over Logano, Byron over Harvick was your best bet. And then you added Bell at 16 and Busher to top 10 at plus 250. So let's go over to the outright odds. And Philly Liverpool, we'll look at Chris Bell and kind of talk about that because that is really interesting that he moved so significantly.
And by the way, before we even go into that 16-1 number I got on Bell, I tweeted about it this morning in response to somebody else's comment on a Bell number. It's now down to 12-1.
Wow. Yeah,
At
his
FanDuel. So
you can apparently bet 365 still has it at 15. We'll see. Some of these numbers kind of get but that is wild. So clearly there's some people that are very excited about Chris Bell despite starting 29th. He is somebody and if you go back and watch the spring race from this year, if you go back and watch the races from last year, Chris Bell was always in the conversation. He was
exactly.
always right there. He was fast in practice. He just wasn't able to put down the qualifying lap that people want to see, but there are people that understand what to look for, that are looking at his practice, that are understanding what his track history is, are clearly making their voice heard with the bets they're putting down. So if you got 16-1, that's amazing. If you got 20-1, that's really, really good. He's clearly getting the steam in market. DK has it at 850. FanDuel still has it at 12. So that's pretty solid. Caesars has it at 12. So I think if you can get north of double digits, I'm probably still on board. But when you get to like 6 or 7-1, I don't know, that starts to feel a little short.
Well, not only does it feel short, but then if you're betting correctly and you're shopping numbers, even if they're not actually bettable to you, it is almost impossible to get down on odds that are, cut in half because that's the only number available to you. I'd rather just
Yeah.
pass on that and
Yeah.
go in a different direction.
Yeah, even if he wins and it stings a little bit, obviously winning is winning, but over the long term, if you're betting bad numbers, it's gonna end up not working out.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, Bell is 12-1 at Circa as well.
Yeah, and that's usually a book we want to price. So, Truex 3 to 4-1. As expected. Denny's right there. You can get him as long as plus 650. I kind of like that. Harvick is there. We talked a little bit about Harvick,
Can't do it.
during our earlier show, and obviously, I don't know, like he still doesn't feel like somebody that I think can win the race. Like he's been fast. He looked good in practice. He can obviously veteran his way to the front. But like, do you trust him, especially when you have to lay this price to go out and get the win?
I don't. I've talked about this, a few weeks in a row now. Like to me, Harvick, he could look great in practice and qualifying, and then maybe he's going to look great today. But I just haven't seen enough from him on a consistent basis to tell me I want to bet this guy as one of the favorites for any race at this stage of his career, at this
Yep.
stage of 2023, like at any time. I just don't see it.
Yep, I agree. By the way, Chris Werme, our guy, professional NASCAR bettor, is going to be doing his live stream, the pre-race poll here in about 10:30
Yep.
West Coast time, 1:30 East Coast. So if you are watching this and you enjoy NASCAR betting, I highly recommend hopping over there after that to listen to what he has to say. He's always got some really interesting insights. But Brian, let's keep it rolling. We have Hamlin, we have Harvick, we have our guy William Byron. He's still at plus 750. Obviously looked good in practice. Didn't qualify quite as well, but is he somebody that you're still willing to get to? Or is that number just a little too short?
Considering that number is where he should have opened up at, Yeah, I think he's definitely
Yeah.
um, somebody worth considering still at the betting window. He to me on a weekly basis is always the pre-flop value, and it just continues. And then like 7.5 to 1 for a car that was the best during practice and has been the best car on restarts this year.
Hmm.
And saw it against Kevin Harvick. I forget what track that was where he absolutely ran away with it. Like Harvick had no business being up there at that time. And
Yeah.
Byron, just for what it's worth, they will make the adjustments necessary to give him the long run speed that maybe they didn't have, or to give him that one lap speed that he didn't have in qualifying.
Yep. And Philly Liverpool, his channel should be linked in the comment or below the video. So if you go down, you can check that out. But Brian can put that in the chat when he has a second. So we have Larson is 6'7". You can get him as long as 850. I don't hate that either. I think the Hendrick guys will be interesting this week. I think they'll be making their voice heard. Kyle Busch 7 or 8 to 8.5. I'd much rather bet the Hendrick guys. I'd much rather you play a little more and go up to Denny or go up to Truex. Are you with me on that, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to bet favorites, but I mean, Truex has been incredible here. I think it was actually smart to wait till after practice and qualifying to see what he looked like, because you're
Yeah.
getting the same number you had when he opened. So I don't mind hitting that number. And then Denny, it's just a matter of whether or not the payback is coming this week, or if you think that teams are actually going to wait, because like in baseball, when a pitcher pegs a batter immediately after somebody hits a home run, they immediately get ejected.
Yeah.
Maybe drivers worry there'll be an immediate suspension
I
because it's
think
actually retaliation.
they'll play it smart and wait till he's in a position to do something, and then if the right cars are around him, they'll take care of it.
Yeah, I can
But
definitely see like
I'm sure he won't complain about it at all. He'll say it was just racing and that there's nothing they could have done.
I mean, if he's like riding in the middle of the pack, he's not going to have anything to complain about. But if he's up near the front, he definitely will.
Yeah. So we have Chase Elliott anywhere from 10 to 15. I still think Harvick. I still think Hendrick's involved, but I would rather bet Byron or Larson over Chase. I
It is
don't know.
quite a weird vortex, Twilight Zone thing we're in, when you can get Chase Elliott post practice and qualifying at 15 to 1 when he's starting where he is.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot about the season he's had. It's been a very bizarre one where he's
Yep.
missed multiple races, and races where he hasn't been very good. But we'll see
I
if
mean,
he
he's
can.
been okay. That's the thing. It's not like he sucks.
Well, I think his results have been fine. I just
Exactly.
I don't know if he's had the car that matches the results, but that's another story. Let's talk about Tyler Reddick. You can get him as long as 17 or 18 to 1 sitting
That's
on the
wild.
pole. Obviously, we talked about him being, he's never led a lap here. That should change today. Obviously been a very strong car. 2311 has built a rocket ship for their drivers. Is this an interesting number to you to grab at this point, or do you rather maybe we'll look at top 5, top 10 on him and see if there's any potential or head to heads?
I'm in the same pool as Philly Liverpool here. Like, the fact that you can get the pole sitter at 17 or 18 to 1, I think
Yeah.
is an incredible number. I think it presents fantastic value. And they're fast enough. The car
Yeah.
is definitely fast enough. It's just whether or not the driver can make the correct decisions and how aggressive they need to be at certain parts of the race
Yeah.
to keep it up in that position. I I'm probably going to add it for a small play, just because like I'm a 2311 apologist. They're my favorite racing team. Shouts out to the GOAT MJ, but like we just haven't been able to see him close, or either of
Yeah.
these guys. As a matter of fact, I almost think Bubba Wallace at 35 to 1 is a decent play, because even if you could have gotten the 60, whatever the hell it was pre-practice, like the cars are fast.
Yep. They just have to make the right decisions all race long. And
Yeah.
that's something that both drivers have hit issues kind of finishing. But this is an opportunity for both of them to make some serious noise. So I'm with you. 18-1 is interesting. 35-1 is interesting. Um, I I don't know what to make of Ross. I'm probably gonna sit this one out, but he's been frustrating. And that's not something I normally say, but I'd much rather bet Logano at 22 than Ross at 22.
Hey, I'm all for you in the 22. Just you won't find him on my card.
22 as at 22. It's pretty interesting. We have Brad K 25, 30. Eric Almirola at 30. Ryan Blaney, you can get as long as 40 apparently. You can get him in the 30s. We added some at 22. Do you have any interest in going back to that, or do you think we should just sit on what we have because
I'm
it's
definitely not diving deeper into the pool of the Penske guys this
yeah.
week, especially Blaney. Like, if he wins, I'm happy with that 22-1 number, and I will have no regrets not going back to the well with that. But just from what we saw practice and qualifying, I think he's probably going to be a top 10 contender.
Yeah.
Which we talked about this early in the week. That normally to me spells somebody that's going to finish, low teens.
Yeah. Doc, I was in on Ross heading into the week, but the speed just hasn't been there. He's been a frustrating person to bet on. I don't think I'll be adding anymore. The number's fine, but like I would rather bet Logano. I would rather bet Tyler Reddick. I'd rather bet Chris Bell. Like there's a lot of other names that I'd rather allocate that money towards. So I'm not really there this week. Beyond there, Brian, we have Chase Briscoe. I talked a little bit about him, but more interested in terms of top 10 head to heads, that kind of stuff. Not really getting into him on the outright market. Bowman didn't quite show the speed I was kind of hoping for. He was fine. Another guy that makes more sense as a head to head top 10 kind of bet. Anybody, if you're looking for a longer shot that you're willing to get to, or should we just cut it off there?
Yeah, I don't even think those guys are like worth your money. I just don't think that Richmond is going to be a track where you're going to have the crazy winner come out. Like normally these types of tracks where it's the elongated runs, it's the shorter type of tracks, like you're going to see the cream of the crop rise to the top.
I love that bet, Doc. Top 10 on Briscoe plus 275. That's a nice number. If you are enjoying,
if he sneaks into the playoffs to jump back on the wagon, okay?
Dude, I'm telling you, we were so live for that. Was it 150-1? I thought we were gonna have a legitimate sweat there, but that's okay. He ended
that
up
would have been epic.
right there. But where was that track? Short or flatter? If you're enjoying the content, make sure you consider subscribing. It really does a lot for us. Appreciate everybody who's hopped in, who's dropped questions, who's brought the noise today. We really appreciate all of it. Let's hop over to Caesars. Let's look at those placings, head to heads, see if we can find value. Brian will always look over on BetMGM and some of the other options to see if there's any better numbers. Should we start with head to heads? Where we have William Byron minus 125 against Kyle Busch. Kind of like that. Austin Dillon plus 160 against Ryan Preece. Like,
I just don't trust Dillon. Like,
I just don't. Well, I think Ryan Preece is a good driver. I don't trust his car, and I think these guys are a lot closer. But maybe I don't want to, But then I'm attaching myself to Austin Dillon, and who knows what that's going to do.
Yeah.
Here's your opportunity, Brian. Ryan Blaney plus 135 against Brad K.
I don't know. Look. I was extremely high on Blaney coming into the week. I think he's got whatever. He's got a fighter's chance this weekend, but I'm not getting any more exposure on there.
Yeah, he's probably like a top 10-ish car if everything goes well. Maybe top 5. Ty Gibbs versus Tyler Reddick. Still feels kind of okay. But,
I
I
mean,
think
Gibbs has a fast car. Like every
he
single
sure
week, he's
does.
showing up with a rocket ship. But you
He's
know,
interesting though, because he was somebody that we're like, wow, this guy's really impressing. He's been really, really
yeah,
good. And then kind of hasn't had the results that match that speed lately. So that's why
exactly.
I kind of like that. But I think there's better ways to get exposure to Reddick. Dinger plus 180 against Eric Jones. I don't hate that.
I
I
was just
know
gonna say, like,
I
I
know
don't mind
Dinger
that
hasn't
just
really
based on
like
what.
ran well here, but it's Eric Jones. Like Eric Jones could spin himself out and crash and be out of the race, and then you're just counting your winnings like in stage 2.
Yeah, I think that would definitely be a number play. That's not something I'm gonna give out and say, "Oh yeah, I feel pretty confident that this is gonna
But that's what we
actually
do,
happen."
Brian. We we find numbers that seem wrong and we jump on them, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, but I'm going to add it to the card and see what happens. I think it's a good number. Almirola versus Bubba. Slight favorite for Bubba if you really like Bubba, but I think Bubba's a guy this week that either he is like a top 5 car, like, and finishes strong, or he fades and is kind of like a mid pack, like 17th finish,
Or he just has an issue.
or he's in the pits doing an interview, being like, the car was great today, and I made this mistake, or this person
Yeah.
got up under me, or whatever. I could see that for sure. Larson plus 135 um, against Truex. Yeah, it was plus 115 when we bet it before. Now it's 135. It's tempting. Chase versus Chastain. I still like Chastain, I think.
I mean, I would definitely go. If we hadn't bet, whatchamacallit, if we hadn't bet Larson over Truex earlier in the week at the plus money, I would definitely hit this plus
Yeah.
135 spot.
Yeah. Okay. I'm doing this. Bell over Harvick at plus 140.
Check the sheet, my friend. This is not good. For those of you that can't see it yet, Kyle and I are both adding this individually without talking. So
Brian, it's either going to be amazing or terrible. So we've had some weeks, especially like when we talk on Saturday night, like we get on similar pages and we find a way to get there. Philly, I don't think Bell's a trap. Maybe from the outright market because that number has moved so much, but I do
yeah,
think he's going to be very much a contender today. His track history says that. His speed in practice says that. His qualifying threw it off last week. And honestly, last week when he looked like garbage in practice and then put down a top 5 run in qualifying, that was when the trap came, because you're like, oh, he was fast in qualifying and you
yep.
can still get a really long number, and then he's just not good all day. So I trust him much more this week to be really, really, really solid. And I think, top 10, top 5 head to heads, like that's a great opportunity to get some exposure. Um, if the outright number is moved far too much in your book.
Yeah, and I do think it's worth noting that JGR as a whole, just Toyotas, have been absolutely incredible at this track. And Harvick, again, I'm going to say this again. Like, yes, he has a tremendous history here. He's got a tremendous history at a lot of tracks, but SHR, yeah, they may have long run speed, but in terms of winning races or running up front, that is happening few and far between this year. And Harvick, him too. Like, he's a top 5 to 7 car. I keep saying this every single week. He is not a top 3 guy,
Yeah,
whereas Bell has the upside to put it up front, in my opinion.
I agree. If you have access to Caesars, you can get Chase Elliott at 13-1. I don't hate that. Larson and Denny to top 5 at plus 325. Don't hate that. Brian, what do you but one more thing on Bell before we look at the top 10 market. Do you think maybe the race starts and he kind of runs a little bit like he's obviously not, he's starting way in the back. Do you think maybe the live line moves a little bit, or do you think we should just jump, if we like him, get on it now, and expect him to move forward and be in the conversation?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be rather quick in terms of him moving forward through the field. I don't think
Yeah.
it's going to be a case where he struggles to get through the back markers, and the books kind of see that and they do that, because if we expect him to have a fast car and to be as good as he was in practice in terms of the long run speed, like he's going to be inside the top 15, within a early in stage one.
Yeah. Uh, Philly pointing out a good thing. We should figure out the weather
Oh,
because,
that's right.
as we know, no NASCAR race can go down without having a chance at being rained on. That would just make too much sense. It seems like everything's looking good right now, but it's NASCAR. Things always get weird.
Yeah, I see 0% precipitation in Richmond, Virginia, mind you, which
Let's
if is
go.
the track even in the actual like city limits of Richmond,
I
or
think so. Tyler Reddick minus 135 to top 10. Kind of interesting.
I don't know.
Not good enough.
I think it's interesting that like he's on the pole and he has worse odds than like Chase Elliott, who has been blah, or freaking even
Yeah,
Joey
but
Logano, your guy Joey Logano,
yeah,
Christopher Bell, for instance, minus 200 to top 10 just goes to show you how
expectation.
they think he's gonna run.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about it when we were talking DraftKings, but Bell is a guy who can move up. Logano is a guy who can move up. Some of these guys make sense as DraftKings plays who move up, and all of a sudden they're in the conversation. Almirola is 150. Briscoe's 3-1. I'd much rather bet Briscoe to top 10 at 3-1 than bet Almirola at 150.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
I like your guy Busher plus 180. I think that's interesting. Is that the best number we can get? That's what I want to know.
No, so oh damn. All right. Yeah, so earlier this morning, again, another instance, I grabbed Busher plus 250 at Bet Rivers. That's already down to 2-1. So
All right. Well, I'll take the 200 at BR. Um, I'm sorry that I'm taking some of your bets, Brian. If they lose, you can blame me after the race, but I feel like they're good bets. I feel like based on the speed we saw in practice and the price that he's getting, like I'm not asking him to win the race. I'm just saying be in the conversation of the top 10.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that's super, super feasible. McDowell is 5-1. I don't hate that if you want a little bit of a longer shot. Um, but as we talked about, the spring race and this race is going to be definitely a different animal.
If I had the ability, I would totally throw up the Star Wars GIF.
It's a
That's a
trap.
trap. Yeah.
That's fair. I'll add that for future episodes. All right. So top Chevy. Byron is the favorite for top Chevy with Larson, Bush, and Elliott behind there.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
yeah, Elliott at 6-1 to be top Chevy. I kind of like that. I think that could be in play. I think the rest of these guys aren't really in the conversation. Top Toyota, Truex, Bell at 4-1 to be top Toyota. I don't hate that either.
Yeah, I actually kind of like that.
He's probably close to winning the race at that price, but like if you want some C Bell exposure, I think that makes sense too.
All right. So what'd you say McDowell's top 10 number was? 5-1?
5-1.
He's 10-1 at BetMGM. So
Oh my gosh.
like if you have them available, make sure you are shopping lines, because
I'm adding that. That number
that's a pretty egregious difference.
is too egregious. Bet MGM 10-1.
Good Lord.
Jesus. All right. Bell top Toyota's 4-1. Yeah. And that's why
And
you
outside of
always
outrights, you can just completely stop shopping on FanDuel because they don't post anything.
Yep. And that's why you shop these numbers, people, because you can find 10-1 instead of 5-1.
Yeah.
Top Ford. There's got to be an opportunity here because I don't think I think Harvick's fine. I think Logano at 5-1 is probably the move. God, why am I
Yeah, I'm
doing
definitely not getting down on Blaney at 7.
Remember on Wednesday when I was like, my card's not going to be very long this week. What am I? And here I am, like just doubling you up. It's crazy. Let's see.
I mean, I've definitely gotten a little bit crazy the last couple weeks from where I was at, but yeah, I don't know if there's very many more I'm gonna.
Yeah, I think I am getting to the end as well. If you guys have specific questions you want us to look at in terms of top threes, top fives, top tens, values, I think Byron, wasn't there a better number for a top five than plus 100?
Yeah, I think he's plus 120 or something at Bet Rivers.
Yeah, Byron just feels like a really good option to be like right in the like I don't, maybe he doesn't win, but you feel like you get a pretty decent number. Like plus 110 I think is fine. Bell plus 175 to top five is pretty wild. Bell 4-1 to top three. All right, Brian. Anything else you want to look at, or should we just wrap up the card, give the people the best bet, and get out of here?
I think I'm good.
Cool. Let's do it. Once again, if you are enjoying what we're doing, if you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing. Hit the like button, tell a friend, and then after you're done here, if you want some more NASCAR content, make sure you go check out our guy Chris Werme. The link should be in the comments as well as in the show description, so you can find it there, or just type Chris Werme, WERME, and you'll find it. So I have Chastain at 16 and Blaney at 22. I think those are my only two outrights. I'm really tempted to add some, but I'm trying to be a little better about betting other stuff and not necessarily going for the lottery tickets that are outrights. Bowman top 10, Briscoe top 10, Larson over Truex, as Brian mentioned. It's better now. I would recommend if you like that, jumping on that now. Chastain over Chase Elliott. Byron over Harvick, Truex to top three, Byron to top five. Yes, he got a better number, so I'm happy I did that. Added Dinger over Eric Jones just because it's plus 180, and that seems crazy. Bell over Harvick at plus 140. Busher to top 10 at 2-1. Christopher Bell as your top Toyota at 4-1. Michael McDowell to top 10 at 10-1 for some reason. And Logano to top 4 at 5-1. So we'll see if we can get any of those and salvage a nice day. Brian has Byron at 9-1, which I like. Blaney at 22. Byron top 5. Blaney top 5. Larson over Marty Party. Blaney over Logano. Byron over Harvick was his best bet from Wednesday. Added Bell at 16, added Busher to top 10, added Reddick. You're the outright guy this week at 17, and then Bell over Harvick. So what is your best bet as we sit here Sunday morning? Getting ready for the race.
Since you're going to let me tee it off here, I'm going to go with the last one there, Bell over Harvick. I'm in complete fade Harvick mode today. I just have a feeling that maybe something's going to go wrong. And I don't understand how Harvick's numbers can be so short, even at a track he's been so good at against guys that have been better than him in general over 2023 and have had the same amount, if not better success here. So give me that Bell over Harvick matchup. I'm going to keep it at 2 units. I don't want to get too crazy here, but yeah, this is definitely something I'm smashing this weekend.
Yep. And I'm in agreement with Brian. So if you want to just take Harvick to win the race, I wouldn't blame anybody. Yeah, no, I think that's a nice play. I am going to take your guy, Christopher Busher, as my best bet as we sit here Sunday morning. I think he looked really strong. I know qualifying didn't get the result he wanted, but that's provided a value for us. I think he's going to be a strong car. I don't necessarily think he's a top 5 or even a winner, but I think he'll be in that like 6 to 9 range to have a chance to to easily cash that top 10 for you. He's been a really strong all week and all that good stuff. So that is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you are subscribed, hitting the like, hitting all that stuff on the way out. Once again, go hop over and check out our guy Chris Werme. Enjoy the race, and we'll talk to you next time.